In April 1912, Stuart Holden was preparing for his journey from London to New York, where he was invited to speak at a religious conference. He had purchased a ticket for the RMS Titanic and packed his belongings carefully. He attended farewell dinners and received good wishes from friends and colleagues. The newspapers were full of articles describing the Titanic as the largest, most luxurious ship ever built, and unsinkable. On the morning of April 9th, his wife became suddenly ill, and Holden decided to stay home to care for her. His luggage remained packed, and his ticket was left unused. He remained at home as the ship departed Southampton on April 10th with over 2,000 passengers. At that moment, he did not realize how significant his decision would be. He later preserved the unused ticket and the letter of invitation as a reminder of the day that changed the course of his life. The Titanic was launched in 1911, and by April 1912, it was ready for its maiden voyage. The ship measured over 800 feet long and 175 feet tall, the largest passenger liner in the world at the time. Its hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments, designed to contain flooding. The engines were some of the most powerful ever built, with 29 boilers generating steam for the massive triple expansion engines. On April 10th, passengers from first class, second class, and third class arrived at Southampton. Port staff guided luggage and belongings onto the ship, while crew members conducted final safety inspections. Some passengers explored the decks, promenades, and grand staircases, marveling at the ship's scale. The radio operators tested wireless equipment. The ship steamed slowly out of the harbor, past crowds of well-wishers waving from the docks. The weather was clear, the sea calm, and the mood aboard was filled with excitement and anticipation. Officers monitored navigational instruments closely, while stewards attended to passenger needs. Families gathered on deck for photographs and farewells. Crew members went through their final checks in the engine rooms and boiler rooms. The Titanic's departure was celebrated with music, speeches, and photographs. After leaving Southampton, the Titanic made 2 short stops, first in Cherbourg, France, and then in Queenstown, Ireland. By the afternoon of April 11th, the ship was fully underway toward New York across the North Atlantic. What many may not know is that several ice warnings were received during those days at sea. Other ships in the area reported large ice fields drifting south, directly in the Titanic's path. Some of these warnings reached the bridge, but others were missed or delayed as the wireless operators were flooded with passenger messages. As night fell on April 13th, the temperature dropped sharply. Despite the reports, the Titanic continued at nearly full speed. The horizon was clear but moonless, and spotting ice ahead became nearly impossible. On the night of April 14th, the Titanic was steaming westward at over 22 knots. In the crow's nest, lookouts Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee kept watch. At 11:40 p.m., Fleet spotted a dark object ahead and rang the warning bell 3 times. He called the bridge and shouted, "Iceberg, right ahead!" First Officer William Murdoch ordered, "Hard a starboard!" and reversed the engines. The ship began to turn, but not fast enough. Moments later, the iceberg brushed along the starboard side, scraping below the waterline and opening several compartments to the sea. The impact was not violent. Most passengers barely felt it. Some heard a dull vibration or a faint grinding noise. On deck, a few small pieces of ice fell, and passengers picked them up, laughing, unaware of the danger. Below, in the boiler rooms, engineers saw water rushing in. The damage was serious. 5 watertight compartments were flooding. Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, inspected the damage and reported to Captain Edward Smith that the Titanic could not stay afloat. She could survive with 2 or 3 compartments flooded, but not 5. At 12:05 a.m., Captain Smith gave the order to prepare the lifeboats. There was confusion. No one had ever practiced a full evacuation. The ship carried only enough lifeboats for about half of those on board. The crew began to uncover and swing them out. In the wireless room, operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride started sending distress messages. The first was CQD, followed by SOS. Several ships responded, including the Carpathia, about 58 miles away. Its captain, Arthur Rostron, immediately turned his ship and ordered full speed toward Titanic's position. But at best, it would take more than 3 hours to arrive. At 12:45 a.m., the first lifeboat was lowered. It had space for 65 people, but left with only 28. Many passengers refused to leave, convinced the ship was unsinkable. Some thought they would be safer staying aboard. Officers and stewards tried to keep order, separating women and children first. As the list of the ship increased, the situation turned chaotic. On the port side, Second Officer Lightoller strictly enforced the rule of women and children only. On the starboard side, First Officer Murdoch allowed some men to board when no women were nearby. This difference meant that some lifeboats left half empty, while hundreds still waited on deck. By 1:30 a.m., the bow was low in the water. Wireless operator Jack Phillips continued sending distress calls until the power began to fail. At 2:17 a.m., the Titanic broke apart. The stern rose nearly vertical before sliding beneath the surface at 2:20 a.m. The cries of more than 1,500 people filled the cold night air. Within minutes, most froze in the near-freezing water. Only about 700 people survived. The Carpathia arrived just after 4 a.m. and began picking up survivors from the lifeboats. The rescue continued until all who remained alive were aboard. Captain Rostron ordered hot drinks, blankets, and medical care for everyone. When news of the disaster reached land, disbelief spread across the world. The ship that had been called Unsinkable was gone on its first voyage. Newspapers published lists of the lost and saved. Investigations quickly followed in both Britain and the United States. Hearings examined what went wrong, from ignored ice warnings to insufficient lifeboats and the lack of emergency drills. Testimonies revealed mistakes in communication, delays in transmitting messages, and crew confusion during evacuation. These investigations led to major reforms in maritime safety. Ships were now required to carry enough lifeboats for every passenger and crew member. Wireless operators were mandated to remain on duty 24 hours a day. International ice patrols were established to monitor dangerous waters. For the survivors, life would never be the same. Many had lost friends, family, or colleagues. The psychological scars of that night lasted for decades. Stories of courage, selflessness, and heroism emerged alongside tales of tragedy. Crew members who had tried to save others were remembered as heroes. For Stuart Holden, who had stayed behind due to his wife's sudden illness, the event was deeply personal. He kept his unused ticket and the invitation letter as a reminder of how a single day and one small decision could save him from one of history's greatest disasters.